This morning we have a guest who's a regular here, Janet Lewis, who is not from Washington State like I keep thinking. Is it Illinois, Wisconsin?
Indiana.
Indiana.
Okay, if you find him, give me a call back.
I've done some pretty poor introductions, but this one's getting worse. And Janet made some comments several weeks ago about the analysis sheet that many callers use, and many frequently use the CALLERLAB one. I used to make my own up that it was maybe before the CALLERLAB one or similar, but Janet has modified it to her own use and added what sounded like some very interesting and useful things on there. And we thought we would let her share that with us today. And if you want to add anything else to your introduction. Oh, and she's also told me she's a square dance addict. But I don't know if she involved not only in calling but dancing. Anyway, Janet, why don't you take it before I embarrass myself more?
Okay. Before I share my screen, I just wanted to kind of say that when I made this sheet, it was just, I started thinking as I was filling out the call analysis sheets, well, I want to know this. Well, I want to know that. And so it just kind of snowballed. So this is kind of like the compilation version number 5 after working on this for a year. So not everybody will be happy with it, but if you want a copy, I'll put it into the file afterwards and you can go from there. And if you make any changes to it, I'd love to see things you want added to it, because I can always add it and change it, and we'll just get started. So here we are with our call analysis sheet. Why do you need to do a call analysis sheet? Well, we've been talking all along about that it's all these tools that you have in your toolbox. So some of the things you might have in your toolbox might be a hammer, which I just put down as your methods of calling. You've got nails, which are flow modules, and your choreography. You might have nut drivers, screwdrivers, torque drivers. Those are all your formations, hints, stars, lines, etc. I thought that was a good analogy there. You may have wrenches. That's any variables that come into play when you're calling. You have a level, which levels of dancing. Might have pliers. That's your operating software, programs and stuff. And of course, then I think everybody needs a blueprint to go from. And that blueprint is the call analysis sheet. And we're all familiar with the CALLERLAB call analysis sheet, which looks like this. And then another version, just slightly different, was done by Tim Mariner, and it looks like this. Basically has the same information on it, presented in a little bit different format. Then we have the Canadian call analysis sheet, which I found to be a little bit better. The one thing that I noticed it had in there was it has, can this call be fractionalized? And did it change the sequence state at all? The one thing I liked about the fact that could it be fractionalized is because so many times I hear that mainstream calling is boring. But if you told somebody to swing through once and a quarter, you'd obviously have to walk them through it a couple of times. But it totally changes the feel of the call when you can fractionalize something. It also opens up a whole world of, all of a sudden I've multiplied the number of calls I can call. Of course, that'll be unfamiliar with dancers, so you'd have to walk them through it. So then we have my call analysis sheet. And several of the things that I did was I put the call starts, things that you need to know to have the call start, things that you would need to know at the end of the call. And then I added an abbreviation that I'm going to use for that call. I added a call number just because many times I was referring to other people and they're like, well, it's call in number such and such on the CALLERLAB list. And I was like, oh, I don't know the numbers. So I thought, well, I just put that in there for reference use. I have in here the number of active and the number of inactive dancers, because you don't necessarily have everybody being active at the same time during that particular call. I put in there Some of the calls have a specific direction, like clockwise, counterclockwise, that the dancers must be facing. So I thought, okay, that's something that I would like to know. And then a lot of times we use centers and ends or leaders and trailers. And I noticed leaders and trailers are, at least in this area of the country, not used as often as it should be. So I thought that's something we really need to introduce dancers to more, is leaders and trailers. And then at the end of the call, do we have centers and ends and leaders and trailers? And while I'm talking here, I just realized I should probably put in there at the end of the call, are those leaders and trailers and centers, the ends, the same, or have the centers changed to be different dancers and have the leaders changed to be different dancers? I did not have that in there. So if we go to page 2, we have other information that I've added in there. And then I like doing things from different formations, like the kaleidoscopes, the Sicilian circle and progressive square. And I'm not sure how many people are familiar with what kaleidoscopes are, but it is dancing a square within a square. So if you had 4 couples on this, or 4 squares on the floor, you'd have 1 square in the center. The second square, couple number 1 would stand behind the initial couple number 1. Couple number 2 would stand behind couple number 2. So once you get 4 squares, you're actually got all your 1s stacked 4 deep, all your 2s stacked 4 deep, your 3s are stacked 4 deep, and your 4s are stacked 4 deep. So you're not dancing in 4 separate squares. They're all inside of one another. And it's really cool to dance that way if you've never done that. If you get a chance to, I would recommend you do it. And then body flow. Sometimes the flow is different for the right and left hand dancer. So I added a right and left hand dancer flow. It doesn't just say flow. Is it the same for both dancers? Is it different? What is the direction of flow? And then we have the sequence of the dancers and the relationship. Does it change from a partner line to a corner line? What kind of relationship does it have? And then during one of the caller school sessions that I was going to, they were talking about moving dancers around the floor. And then all of a sudden I really got to paying attention when I was dancing, how much of the dance floor did I actually dance in? And some of the times I danced in the same spot or quadrant, pretty much the whole tip. And I was like, okay, we got to move dancers around from one location to the other. So does it change the quadrant? And if so, for how many dancers? Then we have the fractionalized call that we saw on the Canadian caller list. I wanted to know if it was a gender specific call. I've talked to many, many people, and there's a lot of different variations as to what is specific, what specifically is a gender specific call, and not everybody agrees on that. At least that's what I found out. So I just said, for me, what is a gender specific call? And then why would I consider that a gender specific call? I wanted to know what program level it was in. And I wanted to know if it kept everybody with their partner, and if not, how many switched partners and stuff. And then, is it commonly called in my area? Because I've noticed that there are calls that are called in other areas of the country quite a bit. And I'm like, wow, we never dance that around here. Or I may say there's a call that's commonly called around here that's not danced in other areas of the country. And then to go along with the different shapes and ways of dancing, can we dance it with 2 dancers, 4 dancers, 8 dancers? What formation? Can we dance it in contra lines, Sicilian circles? And then if I were to explain that call, not using a square formation, because obviously if we're in Sicilian circles, that's not a square formation. And the kaleidoscope may be hard to explain in a square formation. So how would you explain that call if it was not in a square or related to a square? Yes, we have a page 3. We have the mental image area. I put in a spot where I can actually write 2 modules that use that particular call. And then other notes, if I find I want to add something specific that relates to that call, I can add it in there. So then we have our X's NROs, and could it be both? Is there special conditions that go along with that? And then at the beginning, for those of you that joined us a little bit later, I talked about all the abbreviations. This happened to be all the abbreviations from the CALLERLAB program. And so when I write my choreography, I use all of these shortcuts. This is all the mainstream abbreviations for all the calls. So doing a call analysis sheet helps you to know the calls inside out, which helps you to understand the calls better and how they work. And there's several, as I've used these to study the calls, there's several calls and I think, boy, that is just a bad call because it doesn't have real good flow. And I would like to meet some of the people that created some of these calls once in a while. If you do the call analysis sheet, it helps you know what flows and what doesn't flow. And doing the call analysis sheet helps make you a well-rounded caller. It's a lot of work, but it's worth every minute of it. I have spent hours and hours and hours filling out these sheets, but I have also learned that I know the calls a lot better and that my choreography has actually gotten a lot better throughout the time that I've been writing those. So I know that's like real short presentation, but I will put the file, if I can find it here, then I can put it up in the so there is the call analysis sheet. And if anybody wants the abbreviations, I will put that document in there too. And if you don't like it in a PDF format and you want it either in the Excel spreadsheet or the Word document so you can edit them, I can do that too if somebody wants to request that. Any questions?
One thing that I noticed you didn't have on the sheet was call equivalents. I have that on the sheet that I have.
Good idea to put that on there. I will add that on there.
Well, how about just taking a call and throwing it on the sheet for us just to show you how you break it down?
Okay, let me,
Just pick your favorite or one that's interesting. Just lay it out on the sheet for us and show us how you did it.
Before you get into a specific call, Janet, first of all, that's a great list. And it seems to me, and I think you said that, just filling those in, it's nothing you refer to very often, but just by pushing your mind to fill it in the first place, burns a lot of that into your memory and helps you with each call, even if you don't refer to it too often. And it really makes you think, and that seems great. Before you got to the abbreviations, I was thinking of things that you could add, and one of them was I was thinking of Taminations abbreviations, because that's something I've been using Taminations more and struggling with their abbreviations. So
well,
abbreviations for whatever thing you're using, yeah.
The one thing with the Tamination abbreviations, at least this is my own personal opinion, there were not a lot of abbreviations in the list, and it's basically you add your own abbreviations. And that just leads me back to the frustration of everybody's got different abbreviations. There's no standard in the industry. So I'm personally biased towards the CALLERLAB. I don't know whether it's because I know all those, because they're easy, they're adaptable, they're all there, all the way from mainstream all the way to C, and literally there's an abbreviation for every call already in existence. You don't have to sit there and make them up or create a new abbreviation.
Now your job is to type all those CALLERLAB abbreviations into your copy of Taminations so that it's universal on whatever you use.
Well, I don't use Taminations, I use the CALLERLAB.
Okay. The other thing that you mentioned, and you had an awful lot, and you went through it very quickly. And the fact you're making your list available for people to look at slowly now that they know it's there, and the thought that the suggestion somebody had to follow through with one particular call is a great idea. I must have tuned out slightly at one point, but you were talking about flow. What I'm curious about, did you have, one of the things that would be nice, and maybe you had it in there, was these 2 or 3 calls, when used before it, flow nicely into it, and these 2 or 3 or 4 calls flow nicely after it. So they're just thinking about flow with specific examples. I don't know if you included that or not.
Well, let me do this. Let me go
It
back
looks like that's
to
in there. She's
the
got,
screen share. Oops. Let's put that, no. Hold on.
okay, number 14, she's got, what are some good preceding calls?
Oh, okay.
And
Post-seeding.
I don't,
I was trying to get this
Yeah.
back up there, and
and I don't see what good subsequent calls there would be. I don't see that in here.
I know when I was writing choreography for, when I was doing my newsletter, Choreo Breakdown, and when I would write out choreography, I would write out a whole list of calls that, when I was featuring a particular call, I would write a whole list of calls that work before it and a whole list of calls that work afterward, and then cross each sequence I did, I would cross off what I used before and after, so that I wouldn't repeat, but would have different things in each of the sequences. But that's, and you know, having no ones that flow well is a good idea. The last question I have is, you said you were going to put your call sheet up as a file. Where, how do you do that?
if you open your chat window,
Uh-huh.
it's in the chat window.
Okay.
And so then you should be able to
I
just
see it.
download it from there.
Okay, great. Now, I will.
Daryl had a question.
Yeah, as far as things that I look for when I start talking about movements, one thing that's always been real important to me is, does it change the configuration of the square, rotating it? Especially for singing calls where I need something that's going to leave me with a 16 measure or 16 beat, 16 beat tagline or something. I like to know if a movement is going to shift the square on me. And I like to have those listed. So that could be a part of your call analysis sheet.
Okay, more feedback. I said, this will definitely be 3 pages by the time I add all this stuff.
Nobody said it was easy, did they?
Okay, when I was doing my call analysis sheet, one of the things that I found is that flow and the mechanics of the call and everything are often related to the starting formation. So something that starts in a right-handed wave would then have a different flow configuration if you started it in a left-handed wave, for example, and things like that. So I did my call analysis sheet, I put starting on one side and ending on the other so I could match up. You know, even the formation changes based on what your starting formation could be. Your ending formation can be different. So that ended up being important to me, and I certainly did not go into all of the detail, which is really great, of these other things. But you know, it might be that from different arrangements, even the relationship and the sequence might change based on what arrangement you start with. So so that would be one of the things that I would consider is, you know, matching up different starting positions with different ending situations.
I just thought of another thing that if you really want to get into depth, but some calls are done standard formations. They're very easy for dancers to do. And those calls may have formations to start from or arrangements that make it difficult for the dancers. And other calls, dancers seem to be able to handle any formation, any arrangement kind of thing. I'd say couple circulate is people will do, whether it's left-handed or right-handed, whether couples are half sashayed or not. AC-doocy seems to, whether it's a two-faced line or an ocean wave, people seem to be able to do it, whether the guys are in the middle or the gals. And that then there are other calls that if you have a different arrangement, all hell breaks loose. So you might have a note on your thoughts on what's difficult and what's not, just to add stuff to it.
Well, as you were talking, I was like, okay, that's another question is, can this call be done left-handed in addition to right-handed?
Or can it be done easily left-handed?
Well, easy is open to interpretation because it depends on
Exactly.
the teaching. Were they taught to do it? And was it taught just from the standard position, or was it taught from more than one position?
And I was going to say it depends on who the dancers are, but you're correct. It depends on who their teacher was.
An easy thing to add might be just looking at the CALLERLAB standard applications document and putting in the standard applications for each call. So regardless of who taught them, if you go to call for other dancers where you don't know who taught them and what they were taught, you know, the standard applications is supposed to give you a place to start with stuff you know they can do. So that goes to what Don was saying about the difficulty of different applications.
And
Okay,
it's sort
I'll
of
know that there's a revision coming.
sort of knowing what's hard and what's easy is what you would call to a typical floor if you were guest calling in a different area. You know, where you would start and where you would venture to. Anyway, I think the idea of picking a call and going through it, and maybe going through it as a, you know, you point at your thing and say, you know, you can pick a call, but then pick on different people or look for volunteers to fill in the blanks for us. Might be a good discussion exercise here.
Okay, you guys can talk for a second while I pull up the document so I can fill it in.
Is there anybody that doesn't use a call analysis sheet or hasn't used them? Phil's one. Jeffrey, I actually never used one either until I started teaching caller schools and was teaching other callers that it would be a good thing to do.
They mentioned the sheet at caller school that I went to, several of them, and nobody, all they ever told me was print it out and use it. They never told us how to use it or what to do with it after that. That's why I've never used them.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I looked at the one from Tim Mariner, and I got started. And I think I learned by watching somebody do one just to give me an idea of what we're looking for. And then after that, I could probably go on my own. But it'd be nice to have somebody just show me, like pick an interesting call and just lay it out on the whatever sheet you're using, just so we get an idea of the procedure. Then I'm sure I can fumble through on my own for the next one.
Okay, well, somebody asked for the document so they could edit it and do their own thing. So I went ahead and put the Word document of the caller sheet in there so that you can edit that. Although I probably shouldn't have done that. I would have liked you to have it all come through me, just because I did put the date and the copyright on there. So, but I was nice. So please keep my name on the document and send me any corrections. I just ask that you do that.
We have a volunteer clearinghouse. Yay.
Okay, so here we have the sheet. So we're going to go through this. So pick me a call, folks.
Swing through.
Boy, what was it?
Swing through.
Okay. Our CALLERLAB abbreviation, our CALLERAMA abbreviation is swing through. Okay. What's the call definition?
Those who can turn half by the right, those who can turn half by the left.
Janet, I don't know if you had in there, but some calls that are normally done from waves can start from facing couples and you automatically step to a wave. And I think CALLERLAB pretty well defines what those are. Do you have that saying whether the call we're talking about qualifies for that?
I'm sorry, can you re-ask that question?
Yes. Some calls, I forgot what Clark called it last week, but there are calls that are normally done from waves that you automatically step to a wave if you're starting in facing couples, like swing through, and some you can't. And I'm wondering if your sheet has a place to tell that, or if you want to put it in the call definition, can also start from facing couples kind of thing.
Isn't that the
Basically,
ocean
what
wave
you're
rule?
asking is, does the call follow the facing couple rule or the ocean wave rule? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm asking that in stumbling words, yes.
Look at number 5.
Number 5, starting formations.
Anybody know
what
what
you're
number
talking
that
about?
is on the CALLERLAB list, swing through?
Well,
14. I don't know what it is. We'll skip that one. Okay, starting formation.
No, I mean, does that answer Dawn's question? Do you have something? I think
pretty
that
much.
probably answers
Well,
it.
no, it actually does not, because I was studying the ocean wave rule, and I found out that most people don't understand the ocean wave rule because they get it confused with the facing couple rule. And there is a slight difference in some calls that could be done from facing couples that could not be done. I'm fumbling here now. Let's trying to think of a specific example, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
And there are some calls that can be done from ocean waves. Well, I'm getting it wrong. There's some calls where that rule changes according to your level, such as recycle. You can't do that from, you can only do restricted formations at mainstream. But in plus and above, you can do it from facing couples.
Yeah, that's defined by the definition, Jeff. It's
Yeah, that's correct.
It's restricted up to advanced to
Yeah.
waves.
Well,
When what you're talking about is the facing partner, the facing couple rule and the ocean wave rule. And the rule is simply put, movements that require an ocean wave can be done as from facing couples. Those things are defined in the definition, and vice versa. Movements that can be done as facing couples can be done from an ocean wave, and most of those are defined. In the basic and mainstream program, if it doesn't say it, simply don't do it.
Okay, well, this is the document where I was studying it, and it shows these are the calls that can be done, and they did fall under the ocean wave rule, and that was step through, pass the center, box the net, do-si-do, 8-chain through, turn through, right and left through, square through, pass the ocean, slide through, and then trade by did not. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, it does.
Well, again,
Yeah.
the question is, should you have that on your list so you don't have to go back and refer to this every time? For each
Right.
call, does it apply or doesn't it? I've got yet another thing that, again,
Janet, sorry to interrupt.
I didn't memorize your whole talk, unfortunately, but I think it should be, never mind, it's number 7. never mind. Thank you, Daryl, for making me read ahead.
Mel, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to add there that step through is crossed over. A step through isn't an ocean wave rule. A step through is a facing couples rule from an ocean wave. You treat the ocean wave like facing couples.
Everybody gets the names of those two rules mixed up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go to the CALLERLAB Rules and Conventions document, I posted that in the session a while back. I can repost it here if I find it. It will clearly explain the difference between a rule and a convention and what the rules are. We had a fairly long presentation on that one.
Okay, so what's our starting formation?
Facing couples, right-hand wave, left-hand wave. Tidal wave. Left and right.
Somebody has a television running.
Yeah, I'll fix that up.
And
I'll mute mine.
I can't tell who it is from the display.
I think it must not be quite loud enough to trigger the who's talking thing, but it's still there.
And our starting arrangement can be
Oh.
number of active dancers in the call.
This is, I guess, what I was referring to before. I was thinking maybe it should be the minimum number of dancers required to do the call. Like you turn back, you only need one dancer. Partner trade or California twirl, you need 2. Swing through, normally you think of as 4, although I guess it can be done with 3. You know, relay the Ducey, you need 8 dancers there to do it. So I'm not sure if that's the number of active dancers involved is the same as what I was thinking of minimum number of dancers required. But if it is, I'll say 4.
Just to streamline the sheet, you might put the most conventional starting position like ocean wave, and then right next to that you could have 2 little check boxes. One checkbox says right-hand wave rule, and one checkbox says facing couples rule, and then that would capture all of that stuff in there without having to list out. You know, in this example, facing couples and ocean waves and what have you. And it would remind you, you know, why the reason is that you can do it from the other formation.
If I'm hesitant to jump in here, but if you look at number 5, your starting formation, when you look, swing through is one of those anomalous calls where you've only got 2 starting formations. You've got an ocean wave or you've got an Alamo ring. That's it. That applies to every single circumstance. When you start breaking it down like that, then you start confusing the definition by adding, you know, is this a variant call? Swing through is probably one of the strangest ones to start on because, like as Don says, minimum number of dancers is 3, not 4. And we're still in the basic program, depending on which caller you look at. Swing through is a very, very difficult one to actually start with as far as looking at how the sheet works, because it is such an anomalous thing.
Mel, I think though the fact that we as a group and Janet typed in these different formations. We're not creating a definition of the call. We're trying to stimulate our minds when we're creating this as to where can I do this from?
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I'm just looking at, I was just taking it from where Jeff was coming from. When
Yeah.
you look at calls that change from different things, how the analysis sheet is laid out, I like. It's got a lot of excellent points on it. It's really well laid out. I just saying swing through is probably not the best movement to start with.
Too late. We're up to number 7. Janet, take over.
Well, with number 7, the number I would type in here is all, because at the beginning of the call, from any of those formations that we have, well, I guess not a left-handed tidal wave, left-handed ocean wave, all of them wouldn't be moving, would it?
Number of active dancers involved in the call.
Here, we'll do it this way. All those using right hand. Because if you are in a left-handed wave, the two end people are not doing, if you're in like a right-handed tidal wave, a left-handed tidal wave, the two very end dancers are not active at the beginning of the call. See, this is at the beginning of the call. They're not active.
Well, I guess that's what depends on what you meant when you wrote that. Was it at the beginning of the call or?
Well, that's why it says to start the call, see, because down here we get at the end of the call.
Okay. Oh, it does say that.
Yeah. So to start the call, it's everybody using their right hand is considered an active dancer. And so the inactive dancers would be anybody who's holding only a left hand.
But doesn't that kind of break down, like that works here because there's only 2 parts to the call and you've got to start it and end. But if you have a multi-part call, you could have different people active, in the 10 different parts of the call, right?
Yes, and I realized that's another thing I wrote down as we were sitting here is how many parts does this call have? Because as we were discussing this, I was like, this can be involved.
I guess the question is, what value is this providing to you to help you, right?
Well, for me, the reason I was doing this, like, let's just take the call roll away. And I was studying that call, and it's commonly done from a circle left. And the ladies who are the right-hand dancer in a circle to the left, which I'm like, you're rolling in front of the forward motion. That's extremely difficult to do. Thereby, when the call is called, roll away, the circle momentarily has to stop moving. The guys have to stop moving in order for the lady to roll and get ahead of that forward motion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it is a stop and go call as it is initially set up. And I thought, I wonder if there's other ways that would make that call flow better. And so I thought, okay, if we are circling to the left, the motion is going to the left, it's very easy for the ladies to roll to the right because we're rolling behind the forward motion. Nobody has to stop. All of a sudden, it gives a very different flow to that call. Or as the call is written, if we call that from a circle right, the ladies are rolling behind the forward motion. We're rolling to the left as the call is written. There's no stop and go movement to that call. And so that's kind of where this sheet started, is I was like, wow, okay, there's a whole new concept of how you can do a roll away and make it flow better than what it is actually. And I've lost the definition, whether it specifically says the ladies roll to the left or in front of the left-hand dancer, or however that is written. But that's where a lot of this came from, is because I was I was seeing that there was a stop and go movement, and the flow of how, like, just like walk and dodge. When I was doing that call, I was like, wow, there's a different ending motion flow for the right-hand dancer than there is for the left-hand dancer. So it's like, okay, some people, callers, agree that partner trade is okay after a walk and dodge, and some say, no, it's very poor flow. So I thought, well, what would be the call that I would use after a walk and dodge? Well, I thought, well, cast off 3/4. Well, that's fine for the, if we were doing a walk and dodge from ocean waves and we ended with out facing dancers. It's okay for the right-hand couple, but for the left-hand couple, that dodger has dodged and then has to go forward. And somebody told me, well, that's not good flow either. So that's kind of,
in defense of the partner trade, it's a rock forward and back. They do that in round dancing all the time. And since it's done so frequently, the women know how to anticipate it and dance it as a dancing kind of move.
Yeah, I was going to say that's call number 35C. I'm making up the number, but it's one of the variations on walk and dodge. There's there's walk and dodge, and then there's walk and dodge version C, which is the call walk and dodge partner trade.
well, I think it has to do with how far the dodger steps, because if the dodger doesn't take a huge step, there's really not a whole lot of body flow. If they take a giant step over, then it could be a little bit more difficult to make that partner trade. I personally don't think it's a bad call to do after a walk and dodge partner trade. I don't know whether it's just because it's so commonly called, but it's I think depends on how far over that step is for the dodge.
Daryl, you're dying to say something.
Well, no, I can live without saying it. Just a couple of points, and Chris made one there. Part of this analysis, Janet, depends on what you're looking for, why you're doing the analysis in the first place. You're doing a nice job, by the way, and I like what you've got. It's very in-depth. And the reason that I've always recommended it to the students is it makes you do exactly what you're doing here. You're sitting down and say, okay, how do I do it? Who's involved? You're learning. You're putting that type of stuff in your head. I doubt that most callers that go through that and actually fill out a call analysis sheet for every movement go back and say, okay, how am I going to use this call now? But they learn and they register all that stuff into their psych there, so it's there automatically, and that's a big thing. As far as roll away, do you never call right and left through and roll away? There is no circle action. I've called it. I imagine everybody has. The idea of right and left through and then half sachet doesn't really flow all that well. But right and left through, right into a roll away, and then maybe a slide through as an equivalent for a square through. What do you think?
Daryl, I like the half sachet after a courtesy turn, not the roll away. I saw that used in Europe a lot, and I've tried to start using that because they make it look so nice.
Oh, well, there again, that's frequency of use.
True.
So, and there are a lot of things that would apply to, like swing through, boys run, bend the line is not particularly great flow, but everybody does it, right? Right and left through, rear left is not particularly great flow, but everybody does it. The dancers have a way of smoothing out those kind of combinations. But Janet, you're very good in what you're doing there. In your analysis of these things, you're very in-depth, probably more so than most people would be. But if a sheet like this can stimulate that kind of thought, particularly for somebody that needs the sheet, they're going to learn so much from it. Used to be, many years ago, they say, you want to learn to call? Push your dolls. The more you push your dolls, the better a caller you're going to be. The reason behind that was when you push the dolls, you looked at what was happening, you put some thought into it. So that's what these sheets are for, is to make you stop and look at it, define it, find out how to start it, find out how to end it, make ways to use it. And with
Well,
that,
I'm a
I'll
very
shut up.
detail-oriented person, and obviously you can tell. You know, I want to know what makes it tick, why it works, why it doesn't work, what else I can do with it. Because I was at a caller school, and the one session, it says, why can't we make basic fun? And I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. And he was calling just basic 1, and we couldn't dance it. And I was shocked, but that's because he was fractionalizing things and doing things just totally abstract that we just don't do here in the United States. And it was a lot of fun once we learned what we were supposed to be doing. And that's what got me thinking is, you know, how come we can't make basic fun? You know?
That's a question of judgment, Janet. He was calling stuff that we couldn't do. That was fun? You say eventually it was when you figured it out, but I like the definition of square dancing as puzzle solving set to music. But I just thought of what our Saturday sessions can be for the next 68 weeks. We can use this call sheet or the evolution of it and pick a different call every week. Why don't we continue on with your, what are we at, number 8? Number 7?
We are, well, we're still trying to figure out the inactive dancers things. It would be depending, see, and a lot of these go back to depending on which formation, but we're just going to go, you know what, we're going to use the facing couples or the right hand ocean wave, because that would be standard application for this. So all those using the right hand, let's just say they're all using the right hand. So our number of inactive dancers would be none from a right hand ocean wave. I really wish I knew how to make this a fill-in PDF form. If anybody knows how to do that and would like to teach me, I'm willing to learn, because right now this is just a Word document. Must any dancers be facing a specific direction? Any comments? No, we don't have to be facing clockwise, or we can be kitty corner or whatever we want, as long as we're facing another couple. This says a specific direction. Must any dancers be facing one another? Yes, no?
Wake up, volunteers.
I think they're all quiet.
Carol's shaking her head no. We can use that.
Must any hand be free?
Right hand.
Janet, Carol, you're muted, so.
Yeah, I know everybody else is speaking, so that's fine with me.
Okay, well, I heard a right hand, so that's what we're going with. We're going with a right hand. Are there centers and ends?
I can debate, I can question whether the right hand has to be free. When you're an ocean wave, your right hand isn't necessarily free.
I thought we were starting from facing couple.
Is that where we're starting? Okay.
No,
Just
I
saying.
thought we were starting from ocean waves.
I thought we're trying to cover it from both.
I thought we were, well, talked about number of inactive dancers, and she said none from a right hand ocean wave. So I assumed that we were working with a right hand ocean wave at this point.
I think that's where we were starting is, and I said facing couples because that's step to a right-handed ocean wave before you do it.
But so the right hand, your right hand is not free, but it's appropriate to do this call with. I don't know if it's really worth discussing that fact. I think we all can see the obvious end of it, but I'm not sure what you'd fill in to show somebody
Well, I
else.
just put that the right hand starts the call. How's that? Because this is
That
the
sounds
beginning.
cool to me. Continuing on.
Are there
Just re-
centers and ends? We're going with yes. Everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Are there leaders and trailers?
No.
Yes.
Oh,
Why?
fine.
Because when you're in an ocean wave, if you're the out-facing dancer, isn't that someone behind you, your trailing dancer, and you're the leader?
But does it matter for the call?
No, but
It's-
still,
Okay,
if
so,
you're trying
yeah, I
to
mean-
teach leaders and trailers to your class, technically you could point that out at this point, because this is a formation they may not realize there are leaders and trailers.
Yeah,
Well,
Janet,
unless you have two ocean waves, there aren't leaders and trailers. If you just
That's
have,
correct.
say you had a quarter, heads past the ocean and just the centers swing through, there's no leaders and trailers in there.
yeah, Janet, I think what you need to really do on this, and don't get me wrong, I like this, but you need to focus on the actual call. Is leaders and trailers applicable to the call swing through? No. So I would just add a yes, no, or an NA, not applicable.
Oh, okay.
Is leaders
That's
and
good.
trailers applicable to this? No, it's not to a swing through. Is leaders and trailers applicable to a Zoom? Yes. Is it, and so on, that kind of stuff. You definitely
Okay.
need a not applicable in there. Because once you start looking at that, are leaders and trailers, does it have leaders and trailers? Yes. Depending on which formation is. Is it a line of 3? Is it a line of 4? Is it an Alamo? Is it a quarter tag? And then the parameters change every time, and you just end up confusing the dancers more. Where this is for you to say, does leaders and trailers apply to this call? Does facing couples apply to this call? Does ocean waves apply to this call? Does, a circle apply to this call? No, it doesn't. Yes, no, or not applicable.
Okay, like I said, this will be changed. See, all these minds are better than one.
Now, when you first started talking about the thing up above with the active dancers, I didn't at first know what you were getting at there, but as soon as you explained that it was about which people are moving when they start to call and which ones are moving when they end the call, that's brilliant. But you might want to put something on there about to make the person filling it out think about the different formations. So, in this example, a right-hand wave versus a left-hand wave, has different answers for those questions. And, as we now understand what you were getting at for composing choreography and looking at your flow, the calls before and after, that's just great. And then, but you want to make sure that you're making the guy consider that that the answer can be different for the different formations. This one we're just doing it for the right hand one because we don't have all day. But anyway, that the active thing is I just want to be about the fourth person to chime in and say that's a really good addition.
It's almost like the case, depending on what your answer is to 5, you could potentially have different answers to all of these questions. You need like a copy of this section for every starting formation potentially.
Then you're writing a book.
I understand.
And that's what I was doing. I was filling out like 2 and 3 sheets for the call, one for each different starting formation. And I thought maybe I could combine it into one sheet, but obviously, clearly that's not working.
One of the things
the sheet's a starting point to get the person filling it out thinking really hard, and you kind of do want them to write a book.
One of the things that's working now is everybody here is thinking very hard. This is making people think, and that's always a good thing. That's great.
So what are some good calls before our swing through?
Swing through.
That's the ocean.
Extend.
Centers trade.
What was that? I missed it.
Centers trade.
Assuming it's a right-hand wave, Daryl.
Assuming it's a right-hand wave. I thought we were doing that now.
Oh, could be.
In the top.
Scoot back, sometimes easier than other times.
A little bit of an overflow for the out-facing people, but
Oh, well.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so now at the end of the call, what is our ending formation?
And starting formation.
We still have a right-handed ocean wave, right? As we started, I mean, we listed all those, but then we went with the right-hand ocean wave.
yes, it's definitely a wave.
Would it be easier just to say no change? Because then it doesn't matter whether you started with a right or a left or a...
Okay, so what would our ending, well, I guess we marked them all, but we would obviously have to pick one to know what we would end with.
It would still be all.
Still be all.
All of those would apply to everyone.
And would a hand be free?
Well, if we're stuck with a right-hand ocean wave, the next call should be with a right hand.
Right hand.
Really depends on the next call as to whether it's free. Say you were in a quarter tag and done a swing through, you know, nothing's really free, but if you do an extend, everything's available in the next wave you get to and what have you.
Well, in a right-hand ocean wave, nobody has right hands free, do they?
But a call can start with the right hand.
Free, of course. Depending on your definition of free hand. Because in a right-hand wave, everybody's got their right hands joined.
What was your intention, Janet, when you put it? Was it to help you know what you could call next?
It was to help with body flow with right and left hands. But you know, if you're the center, you've got both hands busy. And so I think that would be literally, like I heard a lot of people saying, well, the next call should start with a right hand. So I would put in there, next call uses this hand, something like that.
It'd be either a right hand or a release movement.
The free hand was when you think the adjacent dancer is really cute and you look at the ring finger.
I would think that if you're talking about a hands free, you wouldn't want to do a star through at the end of a square through. Because it's one person has that hand ready and available, the other one does not. Does that make sense? It's good for the guys, not good for the girls to square through from home to a star through.
And this is one of those questions from the CALLERLAB sheet that I never really liked, and I figured there had to be a better way to word it. Instead of saying what hand will be free, maybe I should say the next call should start with said hand, right hand, left hand, something like that. Because obviously the center people, there is no hand free, where some have a hand free, some don't, but it would be a matter of what hand would be a good hand to use in the next call.
On the one that I got from ECTA when I started, it said flow. That's all it said. And on that you were expected right hand, left hand, release.
See, when you say flow, I think of which way is my body going, not necessarily which way or which arm would I use.
Yeah, no, I understand that flow. I'm just saying different people will have different meanings for this. And when you look at it to interpret, and I think you said it very eloquently right at the beginning, there are a whole number of different call analysis sheets out there. Some have really good things, others have confusing things. Finding the one that works for you is the one that works for you. And I'm not sure if that was you, Don, or Daryl, that said that is you have to know what it is you're looking for to go into the detail. You're going into incredible detail here, which I know most callers do not do, and it's great to see it.
I would suspect that if I were looking for hands-free, follow this from corner wave, swing through, excuse me, swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, center square through 3/4 and swing through the outside 2. Now, that square through 3 to a swing through the outside 2 is not going to work very well as far as free hands, is it?
That's correct.
Because the left hand is pretty, I would assume that that's what you're looking for in that, isn't it, Janet? Yeah, what's going to work nicely because of free hands as opposed to the other way?
Yeah, I'm looking for which hand would be available for the next call for using, like, am I going to be using the right hand in the next call? Should I use a left-handed call for the next call? It doesn't really matter because I could use either at that point.
Exactly.
So hand availability, you know, which hand is available.
Daryl, when you were talking about a square through 3 to a swing through, yes, the left hand is available, but more importantly, the right hand is way back behind you because you're sort of just letting go. And so the right hand is the one that's not available.
Well, okay, and square through 3 to a right and left through. I mean, it's the same thing. You know,
yeah.
Yeah, hand availability. I like that term because if you're looking for good, smooth flowing dancing, that's what you have to have is the alternating hands because of overflow, but the hand availability just because you don't want to use that same hand twice in a row, right?
Well, another touch of history, people always used to refer to don't use the same hand twice or 3 times in a row. And we've eventually hopefully gotten people to realize it's hand availability because things like an Allemande to a slip the clutch to a left Allemande is using the same hand twice.
How about scoot back?
A scoot back is using the same hand 3 times. Yes, I was going to say that. So
extend.
It's more hand availability rather than don't use the same hand twice. Something that is in this area that I don't see, and I wanted to mention last week, is overflow. There are certain cases that, and I'm not really suggesting you make this thing 5 pages long, but a consideration is some calls before it or after it would cause overflow, or as in the case of Motivate, there's overflow built into it.
21 and 22, Don.
What's 21 and 22?
Body flow.
Well, yeah, but specifically.
That's where I would put it, yes, absolutely.
Okay. And the reason I wanted to mention this last week, to the best of my knowledge, the term overflow as applied to choreography was coined by Clark Baker many years ago. Just as forgot to add that to his introduction. All right, I'll shut up again. Where are we on the list?
Well, I just put that there's still centers and ends, and we decided that the leaders and trailers were not applicable because if it wasn't applicable at the beginning and we're still in the ocean wave, then it's probably not applicable here either. Will any dancers be facing at the end of this?
No.
Depends if they make their ocean waves properly.
Okay.
Again, that's another one with the swing through because an ocean wave is facing couples. An ocean wave is not facing couples. It depends on how you look at it. A right and left through can be done from an ocean wave. It can be done from facing couples. Again, that's one of those, depends on the next call.
And this is the beauty of this analysis sheet is the answers don't necessarily have to be black and white. The answers have to be, you have to think about it and understand the call when you're filling this in and using it for yourself. And this is making you think. I just noticed that we are over the hour. A couple of people said they had to leave already. We could officially call it over at this point, saying, let me say some thank yous, and then because this is interesting and I'm sure some people want to continue staying around, we could do that. But let me thank Janet very much for sharing her thoughts and her sheet. And yes, definitely. I think it got people thinking and probably helped some people too, and that's great. And as usual, our technical help to Dan. I personally want to thank Janet for doing the presentation. As you know, I'm not working well enough in advance to have people schedule in, but it's great when we have something that generates as much discussion as we had here, which is great. And with that, thank you all for attending, as well as the presenters, etc. And if you gotta leave, go. Otherwise, I'm sure Dan will let us continue. And if some of you want to continue on through Janet's sheet, I think whoever mentioned, let's pick a call and go through that. That was a great idea, and it showed a lot of the thought that goes into it and thought that hasn't quite gone into it.
But it also makes us think more about how we can edit and change the sheet and make it better. And obviously, like I said, it's not perfect. It's a work in progress. So.
And not necessarily make it better, but personalize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet Janet thought that she had a pretty neat sheet until she got all these mines going on it. Now she's wondering, God, how how far off from the mark am I? So she's probably gonna have to rewrite the whole sheet after she gets enough mines on it.
I think it is probably one of the greatest things of praise that I can give you, Jen, is you've come up with an idea, you've come up with a sheet that works well for you, and you've put it out to other callers, and other callers have looked at it and say, yeah, no, yeah, good, yes, no, yeah, and 15 different opinions all talking about the same topic. Nobody's really agreeing or disagreeing, but they're all talking the same thing, because when a caller's ready to put something out there to have other callers look at it and give open, constructive criticism, that's the mark of somebody that's really willing to learn how to call and put it together. I like the sheet. I wouldn't use it in its current form, but there is a lot of good stuff that I never even considered doing when I do my call sheets. They're now going to be in mine, so well done.
Yeah.
It was
Lots of
also,
things that
it was also presented well. Thank you for the presentation aspect of the whole thing. I just interrupted somebody. Was it you, Carol? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying there were so many things I've never even thought of. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
I put something in the chat there though. Just going right back to the beginning where you had the facing couple rule and the ocean wave rule. The one thing about the facing couple rule, as a basic and mainstream, if it does not say the facing couple can be used, it can't be used. It has to actually say it can be used for that call. And the ocean wave rule, box net, pass through, right pull by, or a defined ocean wave action in the movement. Those are the criteria for each of those rules. So I just put that in the chat just as a quick reference.
By the way, that's another, box the nat's another case of using the same hand twice. Box the nat, right and left grand, box the nat, right and left through, box the nat, swing through. Say something, somebody.
Well, did we want to finish our sheet?
I think it'd be a great idea if you did.
Go for it.
Okay, so we were to the body flow for the right-hand dancer. Which is the right-hand dancer. During
This
the
was
right-hand
at the
ocean
end.
wave.
This was at the end, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, this was at the end of the call.
Yeah.
That's not applicable. And I say that tongue in cheek, but seriously, because of Dawn's comment earlier, body flow is necessary. Is a right-hand dancer body flow? Is a left-hand dancer body flow? That's not applicable. But looking at what the flow is on that is the ends are static, the centers have a left turning action. That would have to be cleaned up a bit. You know?
And what'd you say centers have a what?
A left turning action. So the next flow should be either right or a release. Now that's the descriptor, but how you put that in, what you've got in there, for instance, a right and left through has a right hand body flow, left hand body flow, a flutter wheel, all those other kinds of things. But things like swing through, and you picked a hell of a movement to start with, has all these little anomalies in it.
Sorry if I'm having typing issues. I'm wearing my glasses so I can see the screen, but then when I go to type, I can't see the screen to type. I can't. So anyway, you can ignore the typing errors. So what is the timing of this call?
Isn't it 6?
It depends on whether it starts in a wave or facing couples, among other things.
Okay. Well, the timing's defined as 6, so just put that in there.
Does this change the sequence of the dancers?
Yes.
And if so, does it change it for the men or the women or both?
Depends where you started, doesn't it?
I would say that that's not even useful information at that point. Does that make sense? Sequence. Now, understanding what sequence is one thing, but putting it to use is something totally different. I don't think that it's information that really applies here for any useful purpose.
In a swing through, no. In a flutter wheel, yes.
Well, I'm gonna argue with you on that one because it does change the sequence of the dancers. And instead of saying men and women, I'm going to say ends, original ends, and original centers.
Yeah, you have one issue
So
there.
how is that useful? What part in your calling from one movement to the next, or at this point in time, how is that going? Now I can understand one situation where you're going to swing through, turn through to an Allemand lift. At that point, that with that particular module, and I call that a module, then sequence is important. But heads, pair off, step to a wave, swing through. Personally, I couldn't care less what the sequence is at that point in time. But if you have a reason for knowing that, far and good.
Well, my reason for knowing that was as a new caller and you don't know all of this stuff, when you're first learning, one of the first things, at least what I learned, was they kept asking, are they in sequence? Are they out of sequence? Referring to the men. Are they in sequence or out of sequence? So one of the things I started doing was going through the calls. Okay, does this call change the sequence of are they in, are they out? So that if you got to it and you did a swing through, if my men were out, they're now in sequence. If they were in sequence, they're now out of sequence. So I don't want to take them home if they're out of sequence. And I know, there's all these other different types of calling where you don't have to worry about that. But having not been taught that yet, I found it valuable.
Let me say something. Now, going back over 50 years ago, when I went through my caller's class, first class, they were only 10 lessons, 10 two-hour lessons. And they spent so much time talking about sequence that by the end of the classes, I thought there was something missing because I still didn't understand how to put that sequence to work for me. Now, if when and if you get to an element left, sequence takes care of itself. Now, if I have partner lines and I have a particular get out to that element left that I want to use, then I probably need to know what the sequence is. But for typical flow through the thing, unless you've got a specific purpose there, such as an element left, I don't know through the flow of the dance what part knowing or not knowing. It just adds one more thing to what you're trying to keep track of while you're calling your dance.
Well, I think her point might be that that she's so we're trying to get so for experienced callers, I mean, we just sort of instantly see that, and we've done it a million times, so we know how it works. But so for somebody trying to figure it out, it's useful for them to, I guess, to think about, you know, does this change who my partner was, and did it change the sequence? Because they might be thinking,
yes,
I'm involved now, and is this call gonna, you know, how will this call screw me up or not? So it's just more thinking about the thing, and it's sort of implicitly in the context of, you know, I'm close to a resolve, and what do I need to do?
You might be perfectly right, but give me an instance, please. I'm willing to learn as well, sitting here.
Well, so if you have a corner box,
possible use there could be in knowing whether the girls or the guys are in or out of sequence, clear through a singing call, say.
Well, I don't know that you need to know it clear through the singing call exactly.
I could jump in for a second. I can probably clarify that.
Yeah.
When a lot of people are learning sequence at the beginning, and you're right, Janet, in one aspect, and you're also right, Daryl, but when you're learning sequence, it's relevant much later on in the learning phase. For instance, is a right and left through important to sequence? Yes, it is. Because it sets you up for different things. This is where you have to know it. This is where it's in there. And as you were saying, Daryl, and you as well, Chris, if I'm in partner lines and I want to have a specific setup, I know a call right and left through will change me from partner lines to partner lines out of sequence. That's where it's relevant to know it. It's not really applicable on a swing through. I agree with that wholeheartedly. What my concern is, you're making a call analysis sheet, but you're writing the call analysis sheet for a specific movement at this point. You know, does this change ends? Does this change centers? Does this, you know, and that's what was going on with that particular aspect. Your analysis sheet, you know, a sequence or a partner change, is it a sequence change? Is it a partner change movement? Those are things that are a yes or a no. But as far as your call analysis sheet, if you start writing specific for swing through, like, does it change the order for the ends or centers? Okay, how does that work for do, si, do? How does that work for a right and left through from facing couples? They're not ends and centers. When you get too specific, then it opens up to arguments. Changing a sequence, yes, it is important, but that's later on in the calling development. On a swing through, I agree with you 100%, Daryl. Swing through sequence is non-applicable. It's not relevant because it's the next call is more important.
I agree with all of you in different ways. Daryl, I agree it's not important. I don't care about it. But Janet, I agree that it doesn't hurt to know it because it's a useful tool when talking with other callers that think it's important. It's just a communications device that will help you with them. As far as you're saying, it changes sequence for the ends, but not for the centers. I agree with that, assuming they're parallel waves. If it's a tidal wave, I'm not sure what sequence is in that particular case, but just a comment on that.
Well, the one thing I got out of that discussion right there was, I think we're going about the call analysis sheet all wrong. And the reason I say that is because of the variation of the calls. We actually need, and I know no one is going to do this, but this is the way my mind thinks is, instead of filling in all the blanks, there needs to be, this is the call analysis sheet for swing through. And all that stuff that's irrelevant is not on that sheet. So when you fill out that swing through call analysis sheet, you are filling in the stuff that is relevant to that particular call. And then for a walk and dodge, it's got the title, walk and dodge call analysis sheet, and it's got just the stuff that's relevant to that. And the pages are going to look different because different things are relevant to different things. But I don't think anybody's going to sit there and write 70 some call analysis sheets. Although that would be something I would actually sit down and do just because the way I work. But anyway.
NA is your friend. Put it in Word.
I noticed Michael smiling down there because when I started calling in Germany, that was one of the big things that was in ECTA was you need a call analysis sheet, and every new caller was supposed to write out a call analysis sheet for each call. And for the sheet itself, that was one of the big things is if it doesn't need to be there, take it off the sheet. Don't confuse yourself. And that's what they did. And they should be somewhere in the ECTA databases somewhere.
Are you sure that the changes the sequence for the ends and not the centers?
Yeah, we can talk about that later, assuming they're parallel waves.
Yeah.
I can talk to you that privately about that relative to mental image.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of throws me there. But no, sequence for the newer callers that might be listening into this, don't get hung up on sequence. Not this early. Understand that they're either in or out. And that's the basis of the whole thing. At the point that you need to have an understanding of what sequence they're in at any particular phaser, formation, what have you, it'll be applicable to what you want to use that information for. And I can guarantee you, if you get to a proper Allen and left, sequence takes care of itself. So work towards getting a way that you can call what you want to and get to a proper Allen and left. And quit worrying about sequence. Now, Janet, for you, yes, you should go through this for the call analysis sheet, but don't get hung up on it. And the more you know about any of this, the easier it is to use it, or abuse it for that matter. With that, I'll shut up and I'll probably be exiting before long here. So, but thank you very much, everybody. And Janet, very nice job. I'm pleased with it.
Daryl, since we're after the hour anyway, let me just throw in quickly relative to mental image. If you're in east-west columns and there's a horizontal line in the middle of the square, if the man is on the same side of that horizontal line as his spot, Allen spot, the men are in sequence. If the man is on the opposite side, they're out of sequence. And same for the women. So if all X's are canceled, the women's sequence is the same as the man's. If there's an uncanceled X, the women's sequence is opposite the man's. And if you look at an ocean wave, the end person always crosses the center, but on a swing through. But on a swing through, the center person doesn't cross the center line. So the center person's sequence does not change, but the end person's does. And Janet was correct in putting it that way.
You're right.
But as we say, who cares?
Well, just for those people who are listening who don't know the mental image system, we know that fact about sequence and how that works on there. But I just want to mention that in order to use the mental image system and when you're using it, you actually never use the information we just said at all. It's just not, you just don't, you never care, you never know, you're not tracking it. It's only useful if you're trying to communicate with other callers about some particular choreography that you're doing or something. But mental image doesn't require you to track sequence at all.
I've called with every method that you can think of. and I don't know any of them that require you to keep track of sequence all the way through. Now, there again, going back to having a specific reason why you need to know the sequence at any particular point. Yes, because maybe you have a get out, maybe you have a setup that you want to get to, and it requires knowing sequence. But typically, just for calling and flow of the dancers, no matter whether it's modular, mental image, site resolution, it makes no difference until you get ready to go for that element left, and then you might have use for it.
Well, in the mental image system, you know, is promulgated by Don. It's you don't, when you're ready to resolve, you don't care about the sequence.
Right.
You don't. The word sequence never goes in your brain. It's just not relevant to anything, even resolving. That's all just magically takes care of itself by the other parts of the system.
Hey, if I could interject here, can we get on with this call analysis sheet? I think we've talked sequence into death. That's just my opinion. I'd like to get back and see how this call analysis sheet works out.
Yeah.
What he said, to get back into it rather than get back out of it, I think. Carrying on.
Okay, does it change the relationship at all? I don't know my relationships that well, so I would have to sit there and figure it out. So I was hoping somebody else would answer.
Well, in my way of thinking, it's an X, and an X means relationship has changed. So yes, but I don't care because I don't pay attention to that.
In my way of thinking, it's if it were a corner wave and everybody had their corner in the wave, the swing through would not change that. However, if it were a corner box that you were looking at, then the swing through would change who was in that box. So it depends on if you're looking at two waves or just one wave.
And that goes back to the old argument is who's your partner in an ocean wave, the one facing the same way as you or the one beside you, depending on which the next call is.
No, I was thinking it in terms of just who's in the wave. So from head square through 4, step to a wave, that's a corner wave. Your corner is in that wave someplace.
So there again, it depends on whether you're looking at the box versus the wave. Is that correct?
Yeah, to me it does, the way I think about it. That's the way I think about it, but I'm not sure that that's really relevant. But
okay, quadrant changes for how many dancers?
Swing through is a wave call.
Right.
Well, it would change it for the original ends, right?
Yeah. Since I'm just looking at one wave, it's 2 of 4 or it's 4 of 8, depending on whether you're looking at one wave or 2. Can this call be fractionalized?
Yes.
Yes. How can we do it? So we could do it. You could call half of a swing through.
Mm-hmm.
What else could you call?
1.5.
1.5. Could you go 1 3/4?
If you want your floor to break, but yes.
Well, we're not talking whether it's good or bad to call it. I'm saying, could it be called? And the answer is yes, because if you were ever in a unique situation or a workshop situation and you wanted to throw something in there, neat, different, challenging, that would be a way to do it, right?
And double swing through is frequently called.
Okay, so that gives us some things. Is it a gender specific call? No.
I have a question for you, Janet.
Okay.
1 3/4. Yeah, I know what a swing through is. 1.5, because it's got 2 parts, is a full swing through and the center's trade. 1 3/4. Is that a 3/4 of a swing through? Is that a 3/4, or is that 1.5 plus a quarter? Is that a 3/4 for the center to do the second part as a 3/4 turn?
Once and
The second part.
I would
Is it
say
the second part a 3/4 turn, or is that a trade and center's cast 3/4? Is it 1 3/4? Because once you do 1.5, you're back to the wave, you're in a right-hand position. So that would be a single hinge. If you're following your fractionalized definition, who are you actually getting? That's why I'm saying 1 3/4. I would stay away from it. I would say no to that one.
Just because you don't know which it would be, Mel, do you think I'm
No,
sure I'm sure all the dancers would, and I'm being totally facetious here.
That's why I was putting it out there. Because for me, that is adding a confusion to the dancers that is unnecessary, because it may be great at challenge or A2 or something like that. I don't call those levels. I don't want to, but calling swing through 1 3/4 to me would be, what do I want? Do I want the centers to go 3/4, or do I want an extra hinge after the swing through 1.5? I don't know.
Just for the record, challenge dancers would not appreciate that either.
okay, so we'll stay away from it. I took it out. Program level.
Basic.
Does this keep all the dancers with their present partner? No.
Yes.
Yes. In an ocean wave, if the wave is established, no. If you're using the adjacent dancer as your partner. From facing couples, yes, it does.
So it just depends. I think that call is pretty much commonly called everywhere. Okay, can you do the call with 2 dancers? No. Can do it with 4 dancers? Yes. Can we do it with 8 dancers? Yes. Can we do it in a Sicilian circle? Yes.
Do it with 3 dancers as well.
Now you want me to add 3 dancers, okay.
Yeah, you can do it with any multiple of 3 or more.
You put that in the contra lines, it should be in the line above.
Oh, this is another molt.
It's interesting because this is a specific thing. If I have, you say you can do it with 8 dancers, but if I have a tidal wave, you want to be careful not to think that you're going to do a grand swing through. You've got to do 4 and 4. Again, it's a call specific thing. Whereas an Alamo ring, you're doing a grand swing through. Yes.
I would just change number 32 to how many dancers required. Go 3 or more.
Swing through is a really weird call because it's got 2 weird things about it. It's got a those who can in it, and of course it's also got the business with the right-handedness built into it, both of which make it be pretty weird.
Those who can doesn't count when you're in a tidal wave, Chris.
Yes, right. Well, that's where the definition of it's 4 people or 3 people.
Maybe, Janet, if you had a subcategory rather than how many, you add this subcategory to that is comments, thoughts, something specific to this call.
Actually, Don, it does, because that's defined in the definition that if it's called from a tidal wave, it's only applicable to each side of 4.
Well, right, but here it does.
Most dancers would call grand swing through or dance it as a grand swing through, depending on what's common in your area. But that's not a dancer problem. That's a bad teaching problem.
But
We'll skip
eight
the,
dancers can do it, but they have to know how to do it from a wave. And as I say, just notes and here's unique things.
well, and if you notice, we're down into the progressive squares, Sicilian circle, hex, kaleidoscope stuff. And so my thinking was, you know, when you're in Sicilian circles, you've got 4 dancers, you know, progressive squares, you usually got squares of 8, hex, kaleidoscope. And so that's where my thinking was that, but, okay, we'll skip the definition not referring to a square because that's literally, everybody's going to explain it differently. It's an X call.
I think having the section there you have about the alternate kinds of square dancing, you know, the circles and progressives and whatnot. That's for a caller who's ever interested in doing those kind of things. I think that's a great idea to have that in there, so it can, you know, think ahead of time about.
Something I never even considered in mind.
Well, I personally love Sicilian circles, just because you don't have to have specific multiples of 8. And there are many times where I've run into a group where they have 2.5 squares. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's just do this and see how it works. And everybody usually likes it because you're able to change partners or change the couples that you're dancing with more frequently. And it gives it more of a festive, interactive atmosphere, because several times when we go to festivals and stuff, you will see the same people squaring up together all the time, and it doesn't allow for other people to dance with those dancers. And when you're in a Sicilian circle, every time you say pass through, you're facing a new set of dancers. I've had very few people actually walk off the floor in a situation like that. And believe it or not, the ones that walked off the floor were callers who didn't like the fact that they were not dancing in squares. The dancers loved it. So anyway, that's okay. Anybody want to write a module using swing through? I think we all know how to write modules. That's not an unusual call to write a module for. Any abstract notes about this call?
In this case, you would have like the neutrality of the analysis sheet is what is important. And in this one, a comment would be always starts with right. I would put starting formation as ocean wave or Alamo ring and facing couples. Now on that one, for swing through, if it was neutral like that, I would say always starts right hand unless specified. You've got some really, really good stuff in there that I like to use.
I'd like to add that back when you're talking about fractionalizing, you might want to make a note that this fractionalizes up into halves, or, you know, this swing through will fractionalize into half, and maybe some of the other ones will go into quarters and stuff. But if you put a note that you can divide this into half, so you can do 1, 1.5, or half, and 2, and by halves, just a thought.
Any other comments before I close this out?
I don't recall, but did you have a place where it said how many parts to the call?
No, that was one of my notes that I needed to add in there.
I would put that near the, can it be fractionalized? Because those sort of go hand in hand.
Yeah, parts and fractionalized would go hand in hand for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest that we've got all these various things right the way through and lots, I think it was 33 different points. And could, at the very top, when you're flipping through to remind you, the most important points could be right at the top. Once you've filled it all in, you have an area at the top where the most important points to remind you if you wanted if you were flipping through, you know, to look at the end. That makes sense.
Or Carol, just to make them bold if you didn't want to have to rearrange stuff.
Well, yes.
Bold, bold and bigger but yeah, make them stand out in some way. It's a
Well,
good
what
idea.
I usually did is if there was something specific about that call that I needed to bring to my attention, I would take a highlighter and highlight that particular area on the call sheet.
Did that, but I have to keep washing my computer screen.
I print mine out so that I could take them places that I don't take a computer and could study them and stuff. So
If it's in PDF format, you actually can apply highlighting as an effect, and you can probably do that in Word too, but I don't know how offhand.
In Word as well. That was tongue-in-cheek, by the way.
well, the PDF document was in the chat.
One of the things that a comment that was made on call analysis sheets was, oh, it needs to be one page, it needs to be this, it needs to be short and succinct. I'm in total disagreement with that. I like your call analysis sheet, Janet. Not for the reasons that you may like it or other callers like it. What I like best about it is it makes you actually look at the call. It's running you through a whole bunch of things. Some may apply, some may not apply, but it makes you actually think about that call. What can I do with that call? Oh, are we going to talk about fractionalizing 3/4? Okay, I had to really think about that. Can I do that? A call analysis sheet it's a learning tool for callers to develop their understanding of the movement mechanics and what you can do with that call. And that call analysis sheet, as you said, your presentation was about 15 minutes, and the discussion going through it, we were over an hour. And now we're over 2 hours, and we're still talking about one movement on a call analysis sheet. If callers did that for every call, we'd have a lot better callers looking at how these movements work. And that is what I'm saying. That is a good sheet because it makes you think.
I totally agree with that. And the only thing I'd say about sort of the other way of looking at that is that it might be, for sitting down and slogging through for hours and hours and hours all in the same call could be really exhausting. So it might be that you want people to go through through their call analysis sheets in multiple passes, right? So you fill out a bunch of things the first time, and then once you kind of got some idea about that, you might want to go back and fill them in more. If you can actually get people to. The trick is getting people to do all that hard work and to really make them think through all this stuff, because people who are learning, this is hard, right? This is a lot of junk, and and you're saying, oh, nobody will do that, and you're kind of right, unfortunately, because it's so much work. But the only way I can think of to make it simpler is to have maybe you could even have something on the sheet that says fill these sections out first or something like that.
Well, when I was doing them, I actually made what I will call an abbreviated form and then a detailed form. And I found that I liked, being a detail-oriented person, I like the detailed form better. And when you go back to just the abbreviated form, that's literally what the CALLERLAB sheet is. Just a very quick sheet, just get them some information. But I wanted to know a lot more, and that's what started this other one. And so when Don in the intro said that I was a square dance addict, this is part of my addiction, is sitting here, for hours on end, dissecting one call just so that I know what it does. Until the COVID thing hit, I didn't realize exactly how much time I actually spent doing square dance stuff.
I just realized that you could go through this and fill it all out and not thought of half the questions that people ask on this particular call. They brought up different things than you might have put in there. So going through this is a good exercise. But how about finding a buddy that has about the same amount of experience, and you both fill this in quickly the way you think it should be, and then you exchange, give your buddy yours and vice versa, and go through and not critique, but make additions or question, what did you mean by this? Because we can't get 20 people together for everyone we're doing. I was being facetious about our program for the next 68 weeks. 67, I guess we took one of the calls off already. But it might be interesting to use this in conjunction with another friend and then exchange, friend before it, I don't know about afterwards, and then exchange the filled in ones on a particular call and make you think even deeper.
Well, I got into this and I thought this would be kind of a neat thing to call analysis. I've done this a couple different times and I've never found it something I liked. But after listening to all the discussion, I think what might be kind of neat is kind of an outline type thing where you do a cover sheet that would give you a basic chunks. Then each cover sheet or each line, you would have like a subroutine where you could go down and break it down even more for that particular thing. And that way you could look at your cover sheet and see what you want, and then you could dive deeper at each one of those. I think that might be something that I might pursue in that direction, to make it simple. Then if you want to go to the right, you just keep diving in deeper. And we get into a discussion like this for each one. This is some pretty heavy duty discussion for something that I thought was would be a little closer to what I could use.
Somebody was, with computers, you can do a lot of different things. Somebody was mentioning to move the more fundamental basic things to review up to the top. I said you could do it with, so you didn't have to move things around, but just make them bold or italicized or bigger font. You could also do it, number them priority wise, and maybe do it in a spreadsheet and just resort them by whatever you were interested in at the time. Computers can be a hobby also, as well as just calling itself. But anyway, just another thought to confuse things.
So the call analysis manual will be out in 10 years, right?
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Like I said, you picked a controversial movement to start discussing analyzing a worksheet.
Who picked that call?
Somebody with a sick sense of humor.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say forward and back just to keep it simple, but
I was going to choose walk and dodge because that had the different body flow for the right and left hand dancer, but
I was going to say recycle because it has a weird thing about it, but it's not as weird as swing through.
Yeah, no, swing through is one of those anomalous calls. It's so simple that it's complicated.
It did show us a lot about the lack of simplicity of a commonly used non-questioned call in most cases.
And it shows that how you need the neutrality in your analysis sheet. It can't be focused at one call. It's got to be able to adapt to everything. And that's why your comments at the bottom and things to highlight, excellent points. I like it because it gets callers dancing, gets callers thinking about what they're doing and their craft, and that's what's important to me. We're all talking the same language and we're talking square dance. So
well, I think I did a good job in recognizing that Janet had something worth presenting.
Yes.
Thank you, Janet. It kept us going for quite a while, which is, and hopefully we'll keep the individuals going for much further than that. And I look forward to your book in 10 years. It only took me 7 years to write Out of Sight. But.
Yes, that's excellent. I'm going to have to go now, and because I'm dancing at 7 o'clock tonight. It's different times for you, but
with real people, Carol?
No, it's with Dianette.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'm still concerned about the people that think crowds are okay already, but
no. It's great.
They
Thank
will
you very
sort it out.
much, Janet. It was really, really good. I enjoyed that.
I think that's where the expression of Darwin was a square dance caller.
Bye bye.
Well, I hope you can put it to good use.
And we'll certainly have a go.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'll see some of
Bye,
you.
Carol.
Bye.
Bye.
I think I'm going to bow out at this point also. Thanks again, guys. See you next week, if not before. And see ya.
Bye, Dawn.
Bye.
I saw you laughing in the background there, Michael. Mikhail.
I was just thinking about it. Was more lots of things to think about this analysis sheet. So I was just thinking, okay, they think that way and I think that way. So yeah.
Are they still using those analysis sheets in ECTA?
I'm not sure. I have my own in Swedish, translated to my own language, so it's easier to follow.
So I want to know what the ECTA is that you keep talking about.
Oh, sorry. ECTA is the European Callers and Teachers Association.
So they have a call analysis sheet?
I think probably every association in the world has a call analysis sheet that every caller in the world that belongs to that association says they like their own version better.
See, I just tried to get my hands on any of the ones that I could, but when you, like, I don't know whether Google just doesn't understand call analysis sheets or what, but there were very few that I could find out there.
There was a site, I was actually looking for it while you were talking on that. There was a site and it had a call analysis sheet for all of the square dance movements through Plus that was already done. And I was trying to find it again. I did have it bookmarked on my old computer, but that decided to do its own version of Never Never Land.
Well,
And,
if you find that, would you send that to me?
I would love to find it. I would love to find it. I've been trying to find it again. Like it wasn't great. It was pretty much the basic CALLERLAB call analysis sheets in format, but they were all done and filled out already.
Oh, yes.
And I have been trying to find that again and again and again and again, but I haven't been able to, unfortunately.
And does anybody know how to do the fillable PDFs by any chance? So like, you know, I can just make them and they're already in PDF and all you have to do is fill them out?
What you need to do is you need to make your design. One, you need to be able to create PDFs as forms, and you need to have the table so that it's a fillable PDF, so that your name of call, and it'll have a form box that'll go after it that you can fill it in afterwards. I think you would have to have Adobe Acrobat, not just an Adobe Reader on your file or a save to PDF version. I don't know about the various forms of Word or the various forms of Office that have that right now. But, somebody more computer literate than me would probably do that.
Well, if nobody has any more questions, then I'm going to go eat lunch.
Not to worry. I'm going to be working on my things, and I'll see some of you in about 6 hours. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, it's about 6 hours. Looking at the second part of modules. Dun, dun, dun. Take care, everybody.
Night.